Joining me now is Wallace Turbeville, a senior fellow at the progressive think tank Demos and a former investment banker with Goldman Sachs, where he specialized in infrastructure finance. He wrote a report for Demos that examined why Detroit went bankrupt. All right, Wallace, your reaction to today's court ruling.
Thanks for having me here. The ruling today went further than, as you said, than just saying they have jurisdiction and can take over the case and proceed with the case. This thing of saying that they can cut the pensions, that was all about the court saying we have the power to do it. The court also went on to say we are going to be cautious about cutting the pensions and be fair. Other interesting things were said by the court. The court talked about the state's involvement and whether the fix was on for the state to actually cause Detroit to go bankrupt. He said there was evidence of that in the record, but not enough evidence to make the case solid.
That's a really important point. So the court investigated whether the state actually pushed Detroit into bankruptcy intentionally. They have a Republican governor. He passed an emergency management law, which is now being used to run Detroit. And the state played a crucial role in tipping Detroit into bankruptcy. What was that?
Oh, absolutely. I sort of think two roles. One is they cut revenue sharing by about $67 million a year. That's a lot for Detroit.
Revenue sharing means the state would take taxes collected from all over the state, and some of that money would flow back to different areas.
Parse it out to different
right.
Cities and municipalities. So they cut revenue sharing in two phases. One was simply because of the Detroit losing population, but most of it, $44 million of that, was a state law that cut revenue sharing that went into effect in 2012, just before the city ran out of cash.
State Republican governor, state Republican House, they look at the balance sheet, they know that Detroit's in trouble. They pass a bill that takes $47 million out of the ledger of right. Detroit. And then Detroit files for bankruptcy.
Well, then the emergency manager appointed by the governor, who is virtually a dictator,
right.
Actually did the bankruptcy filing. So it was the governor's agent who did the bankruptcy filing.
So the judge said there's not enough evidence to say the fix was in on this bankruptcy. What is your opinion of when people look at Detroit, they say, oh, the classic story of big government gone awry. They've got too many municipal employees. They've got these big pensions. This is what happens when you have liberalism run a city. Why did Detroit go bankrupt?
Well, the numbers just don't depict that. We took a good look at the numbers. The city of Detroit, since the onset of the Great Recession, and the Great Recession drove unemployment in Detroit up to 30%. It was a devastating event. Since the Great Recession, the city's cut its operating budget by 38%, mostly salaries.
It's spending 38% less.
Yes, it is the number of employees per capita in Detroit compared with like Cleveland or St. Louis. There are many fewer employees per capita. There are all these indications that, in fact, the city was desperately trying to cut. On the other side of the ledger, what was going on was their revenues were being absolutely devastated.
Annihilated. A combination of unemployment, of exodus from the city.
70% of the mortgages were bad mortgages. It was just
70% of the mortgages?
Yeah.
In Detroit?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're running Detroit, you've got this recession, you've got 30% unemployment, you've got bad mortgages that are destroying your tax base, you've got people leaving, you've got the state that comes in and says, that's another layer, the state comes in and says we're going to take $47 million away from you, and then you've got this third layer, which is you have made all these deals with Wall Street banks that you are now going to owe them millions of dollars. Explain that to me.
Oh, well, I'm going to make it real simple.
And you're a Wall Street banker, you worked on this.
I ran a derivatives company for a while, so I know how to do this. But simply stated, what they did was they borrowed $1.6 billion in 2005. For half of that, they made a deal where it was under a derivative. They paid the banks on Wall Street the interest, and the principal got paid to the regular bondholders. But the deal with the banks on Wall Street, it's as if you had a mortgage and you were paying your interest to somebody else. But the deal was, if you got nicked one credit rating category, all of the interest for the next 20 years would come due today.
Okay, so you're in a precarious situation. You're Detroit. You're already hovering over getting a downgrade from the ratings agencies, which say you're not a good investment. And the structure of the deal was you can borrow this money, but the day after that you get downgraded, you have to pay us everything that's due.
That's right. And just the interest. Right. That's hundreds of millions of dollars, of course, and they don't have that kind of money. You know, in 1990, I did a transaction to try to keep Detroit, and successfully kept Detroit investment grade rated. It's a really important credit rating. That was 23 years ago. The city of Detroit has got severe structural problems, has for a long time. to enter into a transaction like that. It wasn't just it's not an interest rate bet. It was a bet on staying solvent so that nobody would pull the plug on your deal.
And they lost that bet quickly. Is there a way for Detroit to pay the promise to its retirees and get out of this?
Well, yes, there is. There are several aspects to it. One is to be creative about how you try to drive down their cash flow deficit, which is to really address some of the actual payments into the pension funds right now, to restructure them a little bit. But the way to actually do it, and tragically, the bankruptcy court can't order the state to kick in a little money,
right,
to kick in some revenues, to put back the $47 million they took away. That's actually the way to do it. So
if Governor Rick Snyder and the state government wanted to reinstate that revenue sharing they took away, you could create a cash flow such that they could get their head above water.
That's correct, and do it that way instead
it's going to go through bankruptcy.
It's going to go through bankruptcy.
Wallace Turbeville from DMILS, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir.